So moving to a new country sounds exciting, right? New culture, new people, new adventures. But if you've actually done it, you know it's not always glamorous. Some days it's exciting, yes, but the other days it's lonely, confusing, and you wonder if you'll ever really fit in. Hi, I'm Megan, welcome back to my channel. So I've been living in the UK for a decade now, and I want to share what I've learned about not just surviving in a new culture, but actually feeling comfortable in it. Because here's the truth, it's one thing to learn the language or know your way around the city, and it's another thing entirely to feel like you belong to that place. And I want this video to be useful whether you've just arrived in a new country or you've been living abroad for years but still feel like an outsider. I'll be giving you practical tips, real stories from my own experience, and things you can actually do to blend into a new environment without losing who you are. So if you're in this situation, grab a pen and paper because I want you to take notes and actually think about how you can apply this in your own life. Okay, so why it feels so hard at first when you're moving to a new country. Let's start with the reality. Culture shock is real and it hits harder than people expect. So when you first move, everything is exciting, like new food, new streets, new accents. Even the way people greet each other feels interesting, but after a few weeks or months, you start noticing the differences more than the similarities. You miss home, you miss being understood without explanation. You miss the small things like the food brands you grew up with, or the way people back home knew exactly how to comfort you. I remember when I first moved here, I didn't understand half of what people were actually saying to me. Like, even though it was in English, someone would say, "You're alright," and I would be like panicking, thinking they were worried about me. It took me months to realize that's just another way of saying hello in UK. And those small misunderstandings add up. You start to feel like an outsider even when people around you are perfectly nice. And here's the part people don't always realize. So this stage is normal and it doesn't last forever. Once you push through it, once you start to understand the rhythms of the culture, it does get easier. So the trick is to get through that messy middle stage faster. Okay, I'm gonna walk you through some steps that really worked for me to get comfortable in the UK when I first moved in here. First step, to find your people. This is the most important step. So I don't mean random acquaintances, like I mean people you actually connect with. And this is harder when you're introverted like me. So I'm not the type who can just walk into a bar and make friends on the spot. I need something to bond over. So what worked for me was joining groups and activities where people were already gathered around a shared interest. At the university, that meant the International Society. They organized day trips around the UK, which was perfect because I wanted to explore new cities and make friends at the same time. Later, I joined the Student Rep Society, which gave me a reason to interact with both local and international students. And I remember outside of university, I've joined yoga classes, piano meetups, and even small workshops like pottery or cooking classes. And here's the thing, it's so much easier to talk to people when you already have something in common with them. So the conversation starts naturally because you're both there for the same reason. If you're not sure where to start, there are apps now that make this easier. For example, Meetup is great. You can literally search for groups in your city based on your hobbies, whether that's hiking, photography, or chess. And also there's another one, Bumble BFF, which a lot of people don't realize. You can actually match with people who are also just looking for friends, and you can filter by interests as well. So don't wait for friendships to magically appear. Be proactive. Sign up for something. Go at least twice, because the first time you're just getting familiar. But the second time is when conversations start to click. The second step is to build a home, not just a place to live. So this part is about your environment. A lot of people underestimate how much your space affects how comfortable you feel in a new country. So when I first moved here, my flat felt temporary, like I was just passing through, and because of that, I always felt unsettled. But once I started actually making it feel like home, putting up things like putting up things that reminded me of where I came from, cooking meals I grew up with, playing music I loved, it shifted everything. And at the same time, I built new rituals here in UK. Going to the same cafe on Saturdays, for example, finding a yoga studio where the teachers knew me, even little things like having a Sunday walk in the same park each week. These small habits created a sense of belonging. So here's something you can do right now. Make 2 lists. On one list, write down things from home that comfort you. Maybe it's food, music, traditions, and on the other list, write down new rituals you want to create in your current country. So when you blend the two, you start to build a life that feels both familiar and fresh. So step 3 is to learn the unspoken rules. So every culture has unspoken rules, and you don't notice them until you're the one breaking them. So in Britain, queuing is sacred. Sarcasm and self-deprecating humor are everywhere. People apologize constantly, even if you bump into them. And work culture is very indirect. People won't usually tell you straight to your face that you messed up. They'll rephrase it, politely. So at first, I struggled with this. I didn't understand the humor, and I came across more direct than I realized. But over time, I learned to observe and adapt. So watching British TV shows, listening carefully in conversations, and even trying out the humor myself helped me blend in. So the point here isn't to lose who you are. It's to understand the cultural context so you can communicate effectively. So when you pick up on those little rules, you stop feeling like an outsider and start feeling like part of the group. So the 4th step is how to cope with homesickness. So no matter how much you adapt, homesickness will creep in, and it's normal. For me, holidays were the hardest. Everyone would go home to the families, and I'd be sitting in my flat scrolling through phone and photos of family gatherings back home. What helped was having a balance. So I scheduled regular calls with my family so I still feel connected to them, but I also created my own traditions here. Sometimes I celebrated Christmas with friends who also couldn't go home. Sometimes I cooked food from home and invited people over. So the trick is to give homesickness space. Don't deny it because it does exist, but also to build new memories where you are. That way, you're not just looking back at what you're missing, but also looking forward to what you're creating. So step number 5 is to have confidence at work. So eventually, most of us move abroad not just to study or travel, but to work. And work culture is where cultural differences really show up. In the UK, for example, self-promotion isn't seen the same way as in America. So if you brag about your achievements, people might find it arrogant. Instead, Brits downplay things. Like they'll say, I gave it a go and it worked out alright, even if they did something amazing. So if you want to fit in at work, you need to adjust your communication style. So observe how colleagues phrase things. Notice how meetings run. And try to mirror that style, not because you're changing who you are, but because it shows respect for the culture you're in. So getting comfortable in a new culture is not about erasing who you are. It's about creating a balance. So keep the parts of home that comfort you, but also be open enough to adapt, to join, to learn the new ways of doing things. At first, it will feel awkward. You'll feel like you're faking it. But with time, those small adjustments add up. And one day you realize you're not pretending anymore. You're just living your life. So if you're new to your country right now, or you're still struggling after years, ask yourself, what's one step I can take this week to feel more connected? Maybe it's joining a class, maybe it's making my space more personal, maybe it's finally saying yes to an invitation. Because the truth is, fitting into a new culture doesn't happen accidentally. It happens by showing up again and again until the unfamiliar becomes familiar. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time and I hope this video helped you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.